Hello, everybody, and welcome to Full Course Yellow. And as you can see tonight, it's going to be a short show, but a good show because it's Pete and I flying. Well, not flying solo. We're a duo tonight. We're not the full band. We're not even a trio. We're not a string quartet. It's just me and Pete. So, as I said, fast show is a good show. Coming up, we're going to chat up. No, I speak too quickly because joining us on the line now is Chris. G'day, Chris. How are you?
Hello, boys. Can you hear
Good
me?
to yeah, well, I can. Yes, we can hear you. We can. Well, I can hear you anyway. I'm not sure about what's happening to the people at home, but
Very
we
good.
can hear you. Pete can hear you. So I think we're pretty. I think we're pretty set. Mad Cow Mark can hear us as well. Box can hear us, and also Russell can hear us too. So if you're watching, and you're watching for the first time, or you're watching one of the regulars, by all means, send us a message. Say you're watching. Say hi. If you've got any comments about anything that's happening in the wonderful world of racing that is motor, then come along and drop it in there because it's going to be a quick show tonight. Yes, 6 more sleeps till Albert Park. 6 more sleeps, or is it? Yes,
Yes, yeah, yeah.
yeah, 6 more sleeps till Albert Park. Yes, this time next week.
Wow. Okay.
Speaking of which, just to let you know early, Pete and I were just saying before the show. Doc is working at the Grand Prix, which is why he's not with us tonight. Pete is obviously Pete will be there for 4 days, so he's got an early start in the morning once he gets all set up to go there, and he's there as soon as the doors open. So we might take a break from Full Course Yellow next week because. Otherwise, it's just going to be me and you, viewer, and perhaps Chris and but even then, I'm probably going out on Friday as well, so we might take it a bit quiet. G'day, Paul. How are you? Yes. I take it you're going to be at the Grand Prix. That you're marshalling or doing something official there. But anyway, yes, six. As I say, six. There we are. Yeah, we were just talking about this. I said I saw none of the storm. I heard the storm in the distance. It didn't. It struck us not at all. So, but obviously it hit a lot of people. But
Did it
hopefully,
did it flood there? Because it used to flood prior to the Grand Prix coming there. It used to flood really frequently around that area. So did it flood there, Paul?
yeah, they used to. It did. You're right. It used to be a regular thing, sort of, if you got a really big downpour at Albert Park. But I think that's part of the. I
I
think that's
think that's
part of
part
the
of the
part of the
reason
thing.
the lake
Uh,
is there.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's the same with Sandown. I mean, they keep talking about
Yeah.
building houses at bloody Sandown. That lake there isn't there for show.
No.
It's overflow. It's overflow
It's
for a
it's flood
floodplain, and when it
abatement. It's
rains,
called.
yeah. But anyway, so coming up on the program, we'll talk about obviously the story from yesterday. That was too late for us to talk about in pit lane when we recorded on Tuesday night was the appeal against the disqualification of the Triple Eight cars from race one at the Newcastle 500 was heard, and it was dismissed. So
As it
I'm
should
not
be.
surprised. Yeah, I'm
Yes,
not surprised that it was dismissed. But it still turns out what surprises me, or not, I don't suppose it surprises me. What I think is interesting is the fact that it's like Triple Eight are sort of unrepentant about it. I mean, they immediately put out a press release, basically saying as far as we are concerned, we had permission, we had verbal permission, so they're still sort of saying that as far as they're concerned, they were told that they could do it. And I find that personally, I find it a bit hard to believe because when you see particularly Mark Larkham's analysis of like why it was such a big deal in terms of the safety by putting that box of dry ice basically between the driver's seat and the side of the car, you can see why they wouldn't allow them to put it there. It was obviously done for convenience sake, because as he pointed out, it wouldn't have made any great difference in terms of handling or anything like that. So they were getting no direct performance boost out of it. But at the same time, you did,
was it? Sorry, go.
That there to chill the fuel.
no, well, no, it was basically they had it the cold air was blowing. So it wasn't for a cool suit. Basically, they had it like an air conditioner blowing in to the footwells, because this is what all of the drivers are complaining about, is that they're all getting burnt feet because it's very hot. The engine's back further. They're basically sports sedans. The engine's being brought back a lot further. There's very little space. The driver's seat has been moved across towards the left, so it's right up against the engine, and the drivers are complaining that it's bloody hot down there. So Triple Eight decided to try and do something about it and put in some cold air into that area. But unfortunately, I mean, they got pinged for it. But as Larkham said, surely there were other ways they could have done it. They didn't have to put it there, and there were probably ways they could do it within the rules. But Triple Eight's argument was, we simply didn't have time. This was the most convenient. This was the fastest thing, and we'll see how it goes. But it was interesting that they were totally unrepentant. There was no okay, we put our hand up, we did the wrong thing, no, and we're sorry. No, it was we're still saying we were told. Yeah, we were told. So it's not going to be the best atmosphere around with Adrian Burgess and the Triple Eight guys, because basically Triple Eight are saying you're lying.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they should have got it in writing that he okayed it.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things that they were talking about, is that they said that a lot of stuff, because of the nature of getting things done and just making sure the cars got out onto the track, a lot of it was based on the fact that there was apparently a lot of sort of stuff, lots of nods and winks, and okay, look, do it this time, we'll sort it out at the next before the next round or something. That's according to some of the reports that were out there. So they were saying that not everything was sort of signed off on, but now at least you could say, if I was a team manager, I wouldn't be just taking anybody's word for it. I'd be saying, well, I want to see this. I'm not going to just get your okay in verbally. I want to see this in writing. If you say that that's okay for us to do this, will you please sign this piece of paper? Otherwise, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. What I was referring to is the old practice back in the, I think it was the drag racing days, that you chilled your fuel before it went into the carburetors.
They used to do that, of course, in Formula One very, very regularly, because apart from the benefits of having the chilled fuel going into the engine, the main thing in Formula One was, and in endurance racing is, of course, if the fuel is very, very, very cold, it doesn't take up quite as much space.
That's right.
So that's why they banned that in Formula One.
Okay.
So I imagine that it would be the same in supercars, and I think most things, I think now that it has to be sort of quite at room temperature. It's like like a fine red, got to be at room temperature.
The very thick red line.
Yes. Yes. So but anyway, so that's the thing with, and they're coming. If you have a look, Brad Jones has had a lot of really good things on his YouTube channel, sort of explaining a lot of technical stuff, and he's put up the most recent one is having a look at what they're doing with these wheel nuts, and how they're working their way through to try and make them more reliable and actually work better. And when you have a look at the original design, you sort of look at it and say, was it any wonder they were having problems? Seemed a bit strange. Yeah, well, they had these little sort of teeth on the end, and they looked a bit flimsy, and then they sort of knocked them back a bit. Well, the new design, they're taking the teeth off completely, and they're also going to allow sort of tapering on into the into the threads to make it sort of so it'll centre better, and there's not the risk of cross threading. So it was interesting how they're sort of working it all out, because that was one of the problems they've got, is they've got sort of cold aluminium wheels going onto absolutely red hot hubs,
Massive amounts of expansion difference.
Yeah, it's like, and they're just not, and it's just not going on smoothly. In fact, it's interesting because he put them on, and obviously they're just at normal temperature. They're haven't come off the car, and even at the moment, there's quite a lot of play between the two of them. But once those hubs, get up to the sort of ridiculous temperatures that they're running, particularly on the front of a supercar, they obviously expand a great deal and become very, very hard to get the wheels on and off. So hopefully they've got that sorted out. Also coming up, anybody good? It's a sad day. It's R.I.P. Camaro. It was yes, Camaro. We hardly knew you. I mean, it was a brief but beautiful affair.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I've hardly seen one. I've seen more Mustangs on the road than I have Camaros. So I don't think it's going to be such a drama.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, like, I've seen a few people say, look, it doesn't matter whether we run, it doesn't matter whether the cars people aren't sort of, going on. It's not like the old days of, win on Sunday, buy on Monday. People are not rushing out to buy Mustangs and Camaros. And they said, well, really, does it matter? I mean, if the Camaro sort of disappears, it's not as if you could go down to your local GM dealer and just and say, oh yes, I'll have one of those, please. It is a special vehicle. Be interesting though. I mean, it causes a problem for General Motors all up because of course they've got to have a replacement. It's very clear for road racing everywhere else around the world. The replacement is the Corvette. I mean, that's what they've made very clear. The road racing platform is the Corvette, but what are they going to use for NASCAR, for instance? I mean, they're currently running the Camaro, a Camaro style body in NASCAR. So what are they going to replace that with at some stage? And if you have a look on their have a look at the Chev website, there's really not much out there. I'm just wondering whether a possibility might be, particularly for NASCAR, but even over here, because they're talking about bringing a few over here, is to switch over to the Cadillac brand. And so you'd have Chev would be making, you'd have Chev basically making SUVs and pickup trucks. You'd have Cadillac making sedans, and you'd have Corvette as a standalone brand, just basically making Corvettes, both normally, ICE and electric, so and hybrid. So, we've got there. Few people have joined us again. Michael is joining us again. Michael Helsel. G'day, Mike. How are you? Also, Brett Sellers is with us. Yeah, I could count the new Camaros I've seen on one hand. Yeah, I saw one. You notice them when you see them. You drive. One went past me the other day. A red one went past, and it was like, oh, like Mustangs. They're all over the bloody joint here. Hampton Park. It's the streets are full of the damn things. Can't go we're up to our neck in Mustangs here. It's it's like being in an old Western movie. But it's but Camaros, you see one occasionally. In fact, I've probably seen more Corvettes recently than I've actually seen Camaros. So they're not thick on the ground. I think that Pete McKenzie, we need to have right factory built like Mercedes or Toyota. That's going to be they're the only things that are left. I mean, if you have a look across the range now, in terms of large particularly rear wheel drive cars, the only people who make them anymore is basically BMW, Audi, Mercedes. You've got front wheel drive, the larger car like the Camry coming from Toyota. But I can't see them being too keen to run. If Toyota wanted to run anything, it would probably want to run the Supra, and they've already said they've got no interest in that because they've got a GT4 version of it, and they really can't see any benefit in spending all that money just to. The market's not big enough for them to bother spending money. So unless supercars were prepared to, stump up for the money themselves. And create and homologate a version of it, and then they've got to have permission from Toyota too, because it's not like the old days where you could just go out and say, "Oh, I'm going to build a Chev powered Volkswagen or something like that." Because nowadays, if you did that, Volkswagen would come in and say, "Oh no, you're not." That's our IP there. That's our that Type 2 or Type 3 fastback Volkswagen is our intellectual property.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what the Polish, not the Polish, the Russians are saying, isn't it?
Oh,
About
well,
Volkswagen.
all right, I hadn't seen that, so
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the Russians have closed down the Volkswagen plant and told Volkswagen to disappear, and said that the Volkswagen design is ours.
well, why not? Why
Yes.
not? They can do what nobody's going to stop them. So it's as
They
Russian as
have
beetroot
tanks.
soup. Yes, they have tanks.
I'm
You know,
not sure they're left-hand drive, but hey,
yeah. I don't think it matters with a tank. You drive where because you drive on whatever side of the road you want.
the whole thing is that the countries that build or drive on the left-hand side of the road will continue driving with right-hand drive cars, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got when we don't have too many of those about. I mean, obviously Japan and England and a few others, New Zealand, a few others around. So there are a few, but it's a very small market. And although today, I think it was today that, or just recently, General Motors did sort of show off a preview of the right hand drive Corvette. That
Okay.
they haven't said how many will be sold in Australia. They haven't said exactly how much they're going to cost, but they've said here it is. I mean it exists because they're building that not just for Australia of course, but more particularly for Japan and England and that
Of
sort of thing.
course.
So they're sort of pushing the Corvette is going to be pushed very heavily, and both the Corvette and the Mustang GT3 have been testing at Sebring just recently. I didn't get time. I was going to put up some footage and some sound of the Mustang. It's available all over the place online. Ford Performance put up some things of the Mustang racing at or testing at Sebring, and it sounds wonderful. It sounds really good. So yeah, so that's coming. So we will see sort of Mustangs and Corvettes racing in Australia, but not for a couple of years because the homologation, unfortunately, won't come in time for the Bathurst 12 hour. It's a bit of a loophole for the Bathurst 12 hour because it's actually too early in the year to have the homologation done. So we won't see. I mean, next year we'll see the new Ferrari and the new Porsche, but we won't see the Mustang and the Corvette until 2025. But I think we will see the Mustang and the Corvette. Chev Motorsport have already said there's been considerable interest in the Corvette from Australian teams, and Ford Performance have openly said that it's going to be one of the races they're going to target, along with Le Mans and the Spa 24 hour and Nürburgring 24 hour. They're going to target those major races, and Bathurst 12 hour was definitely among them. So yeah, so we will see them, just unfortunately not next year. Um,
Hmm.
We got any reports the Street Outlaws went at Calder. Yeah, well, it was a very mixed weekend of action out at Calder. If I don't know if Roy's watching us tonight, but Roy got the short end of the stick. He went out for the monster trucks, which was an absolute debacle. You might have seen stuff on Channel 7 about that. Interesting. I mean, they caught up with the guy who ran it, who went, we had a few problems, but people just left too early. They got there too early, and we didn't communicate the times properly. But it was a complete disaster, and people are demanding their money back. Calder Park Management have already said they won't deal with them again because they're getting monstered as well. But they're also saying, no pun intended.
Monster.
But they're saying like, yes, it's not. We just hire the place out. We hand them the keys, but we won't be dealing with them again. We won't be letting them back
Yeah, but the
again.
public doesn't see that way.
Yeah, well, that's it, and that's part of the problem. But in terms of the Street Outlaws, it seemed to go. It seemed to go very well. It went better in terms of the track surface. It went a lot better than a lot of people. All the naysayers were there saying, "Oh, this is going to be a disaster. The track is, the track's going to be terrible, and there's going to be crashes everywhere." And there was a couple of minor incidents, but I mean, the track seemed to be doing. I mean, certainly, a couple of cars got up on had no trouble getting up on the rear wheels coming away, and for a track that was unprepped. It did pretty well. I think that everybody sort of said that the track was much better than everyone thought it was going to be. Most people I saw who went along, and there were big crowds on both days, seemed to enjoy it. So I think that I think it went very well. The interesting thing was, as I think it was Murdenova saying said on the show about that this might lead to sort of a boost in similar sort of no prep racing in Australia. It was already sort of around, but it seems to be the case that a lot of people are saying, well, where we will come back in a couple of years, guys, because the Americans just like wiped the floor with the locals in the main. I mean, there were a couple of wins for the Australians. But the Americans in the main just totally dominated because most of their cars have got traction control. They've been running this sort of racing for years now, so they know how to set their cars up to get the maximum amount of traction on an unprepared strip, and they did really well. But as I said, everybody who went along, from what I've heard, everybody seemed to enjoy it. So. Although there were very long breaks, because it is essentially a television show, there were very, very long breaks where they sort of had to change things to get to move cameras and reshoot little bits and pieces.
Keep the sponsors happy.
Yeah, so it wasn't. I mean, people who were going along expecting to see a traditional Aussie drag racing event, that's not what this was. This was the filming of a reality, in inverted commas, TV show, and that's what they got. But apparently the guys were very popular. Everyone said that they were very nice. They were certainly great with us. I mean, they were terrific. They were terrific. The whole team that came in on that night were fantastic. So I would hope we'd see them back. Certainly they're talking about perhaps in a couple of years. They've obviously got to see how the thing rates and how it goes, because it is a television show. But if it goes really well, who knows? They might come back again, and that'd be good. But anyway, so that's coming up.
So is there going to be a Dragging with the Stars?
Yeah, yes. Hey, listen. Okay, that's we're copywriting that. Copyright in pit lane. Dragon with the Stars. I like it. I can see that going. They're ticking over now. Ticking over. And in the word over, Delta Goodrun takes on Roman Manus. No, I like that. I think that's got legs. We'll legs. We'll push that one. Yeah, I think we'll get together. We'll get together, Chris, and we'll pitch that. I'm sure Channel 10 will be interested. Pete, Formula One. I take it you stayed up to ridiculous hours again in the morning to have a look at the thing
all weekend. I think in Mercedes there's starting to be a bit of tension creeping in because George is starting to say to the team that I'm faster than Lewis. Can you let me through? And it was interesting that at McLaren, even though they were racing for like 14 or 16 to 14, they told Lando not to make it hard for Oscar for him to get through, and he had a bit of bad luck. He qualified well, but he had a bit of bad luck in the race where he tangled with one of the Alpines, I think, and a bit of bodywork went off, and that he had to get that report repaired, and that sent him to the back with Lando. And they were basically racing each other, but McLaren told Lando not to make it too hard for him, which was...
Well, apparently they've had a bit of a chat, post-race, where they've laid the law down to both of them that, like, you are racing each other, but, you don't take each other out, and we're just trusting you to behave, because, they're already, obviously from a PR viewpoint, they want to they want to push it up. They want to push up the they want to push up the benefits of Oscar joining over Daniel.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that sort of people have got a point score system, sort of like going with how many points Daniel was at the same time, and saying and pointing out that at this stage last year Daniel already had more points than both current McLaren drivers combined. So that's a bit cruel, and they're doing the same at Aston Martin for Vettel, but unfortunately in that case, or fortunately for Aston Martin, Fernando's doing rather well, a lot better than anybody thought.
Yeah.
Brett's saying what's the chances of getting Oscar into the IPL studio? Probably about as much as me or Doc winning an Oscar for our performances on IPL.
Yeah, I think we've got a better chance of getting the Pope in.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Chris, because joining us in 2 weeks' time, actually joining us in 2 weeks' time on the Thursday before Easter, there will, I don't know whether the Pope will be there, but certainly there'll be religious people, but unfortunately we won't, because the Thursday before Easter, and I'm told from people who know and follow this sort of stuff that apparently it's called Holy Thursday.
Is
But
that
Holy
right?
apparently, yes.
Or Maundy Thursday.
Oh, okay, there you go. So that's
Yeah.
something I've heard of that. Yes, I
Then
didn't know
Good
what day it
Friday,
was.
isn't it? Is that
Yeah,
the
Good
one?
Friday. Yeah, Good Friday is
It's the day before
obviously
Good Friday.
right. So
Yeah, Thursday follows like that.
but
Yeah.
either the but yeah, Channel 31 has some commitments. They're doing some live coverage of some religious services on the Thursday night. So that week, unfortunately, there'll be no In Pit Lane on Channel 31, but there will be an In Pit Lane live on the Tuesday night. And hopefully over the next 2 weeks we'll solve the audio problems we've had out of the studio. It would appear that StreamYard, which is what we use to do this program, and what we're trying to use, doesn't like the feed coming out of the studio.
Okay.
That was the problem. So we did get the messages from everybody on Tuesday night, and thanks for watching. But yeah, they eventually sort of bypassed it and got it sort of working again. But at this stage, we're not sure why it's not working. But it's the audio is just not working as we would like it out of the studio. But we are doing something that basically no one else. Because I spoke to StreamYard about it and said, this is what we're doing, and they went, no one's done that before.
That's never a good
Okay.
sign.
That's not what we've never really made it for something like coming out of a proper television. Yeah, we didn't really make it for that. We made it for people to sit at home in their spare rooms with a webcam like that. Not to come out of a $7 million television studio in 4K and with surround sound and all that sort of
Proper
nonsense.
broadcast studio is the word.
Yeah, the proper thing, sort of throwing them out. But so they're quite keen on trying to figure it out, to help us figure it out. So that's a good thing, because that's one of the things we want to do. But yeah, coming up this week on the show, I found out today we've got Connor Summer is coming on the show. He's a Formula 4 driver with Sonic. We put out the feelers. He's coming in because our we invited Matt Hillier on, who's currently leading the Formula Ford Championship, and he's sort of been sending me strange messages saying, might not make it in, can't say why, but and then this afternoon we found out why, and that is because he's been signed by Walkinshaw Andretti United to be a part of their campaign in the Toyota 86 series.
Oh.
Matt actually works as a they've got an academy there, and Matt's a part of that academy. He's working at Walkinshaw, and that was what he said. He said, "Look, I'm not sure. We're going to be flat out preparing cars for Albert Park, and I'm up to my neck in that." And we'll be packing up the transport and all the rest of it. So I might not be able to make it, but this came out there. But Matt will probably be in a few weeks' time, probably in the run up to the next state round with Formula Ford, because I think he's still going to be doing at least the national series in Formula Ford, if not continuing with the state series as well. But anyway, Connor Summers is coming in this week on In Pit Lane as we preview the Grand Prix. But yes, unfortunately, Oscar Piastri at this stage is not coming in. We could have a Paul Stoddart situation where literally, I don't know if Pete remembers that, but I literally got a phone call at 1 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon from James Chen, who said, "Hey, I'm at a fan meet and greet with Paul Stoddart," and I said to him, "Hey, would you like to come in and do a show tonight, a television show at RMI TV?" And he went, "Yeah, okay." And Paul Stoddart came in because Paul went to RMIT as a student, and when it was
Oh,
explained
okay.
to him what it was all about, he had nothing on that particular night and said, "Yeah, I'd love to. That sounds." So suddenly we like from at 1 o'clock we did some. I don't know who we bumped to say that, but someone was like, "Hey, you were coming on in Pit Lane tonight? Well, now you're not. Paul Stoddart's here. Go away." And he was very good. He was lots of fun. Lots of fun, Paul. But anyway, so yeah, so that's coming up this weekend. Anything else, Pete? More Formula One stuff. Ferrari still struggling.
Yep, and of course Mercedes is comparatively struggling. They were little bit better in Saudi Arabia. Um, I don't know if it's too early to press the panic button in terms of Red Bull dominating, because if you look at last year, um, actually Max Verstappen had a DNF in Melbourne, and he was having drive shaft problems in Saudi Arabia. So I don't know if it's too early to press the panic button yet, in terms of domination for
Yeah, I
Red
think
Bull.
I think Fernando said it right. He said in terms of like what people said, what chance do you have of winning the championship? And he said a very good chance. He said providing the Red Bulls have problems. He
Yeah.
said if they have problems, he said then yes, I've got a chance. He said, but if they go through the weekend running perfectly, so I can't see anybody beating them at this stage. So
So,
I would hope that. I mean, I think that they're sort of perhaps it's wishful thinking, but I see that a lot of people are saying, well, look, if they allow Max and Checo to race each other, and there's a genuine fight between teammates, then yes, it's okay. That'll be okay. I mean, even though it'll be Red Bull all the way, it'll be a battle between two drivers in identical cars for the same team, fighting it out all the way. But if they decide to favour Max, as you would expect them to do, and you get a lot of Checo, Max is faster than you, then yeah, it's going to be a pretty dull, pretty dull year.
Yeah. Um, but in Saudi Arabia, even though Max did get the fastest lap, um, he um, he asked, "What's the fastest lap?" And the team said, "Oh, over the radio, we're not worried about that." He said, "Well, I am," and he actually went for the fastest lap. And apparently, Sergio was told to hold station and not go any faster. Um, but then Christian Horner later said, actually, Sergio blew his chance to get the fastest lap because he backed out of it.
Yeah, I think he was probably playing it safe, and his team and his side of the garage wanted him to play it safe because they said because they thought there was probably no chance of Max coming up and actually getting past him. So they probably said, look, just make sure you get it to the end and don't do anything silly. Whereas Max was basically told don't do anything silly, but he did it anyway. So that'll be interesting, but it's hard to see anybody beating them. It's interesting coming up. Both Mercedes and McLaren have said that wait till we get to Baku. Baku is where we will have the first major revisions
Yeah,
of what we're
upgrades.
doing. And it's interesting for the
Yeah,
first time, Toto was saying we are not welded in on that sort of side pod, that zero sort of side pod design that seems to be the problem. They had sort of said, no, we're confident this is going to work. I don't think they're quite as confident now, and it wouldn't surprise me if the major revision we see will be a very different looking Mercedes once we get to Baku. They're just trying to get Melbourne out of the road first, and wait until I can get back to Europe and spend a bit more time with the cars in the workshop.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's coming up. So yeah, so we're not far away from the Grand Prix, and it's looking very good. I was looking today that even for Thursday and Friday, in terms of reserved grandstand seating and all that, it's very, very limited. They are pushing to try and sell. They are pushing to try and sell more tickets for the Thursday, with the fact that you are getting a supercar race, you are getting a round of the supercar championship. So that in and of itself is. It's probably worth going. It's pretty cheap too. I think it's if you want to go and if you just want to, okay, you're not going to see any Formula One, but if you just want to go along and sort of take in the atmosphere of the event and see some Carrera Cup and see some supercars running around, then it's I think it's about $40 or something to get in on the Thursday just for general admission. So so a fairly sort of fairly affordable day out, and then all of the other stuff will be there, including the Motorsport Hall of Fame,
Yes.
which they're going to. I remember the Motorsport Hall of Fame sort of has petered out over the past few years. I remember we went along for quite a few of them because it was a big night at Jeff's Shed, the Melbourne Convention Centre, and a black tie dinner, and it was very much a big deal. And this year it's going to be the guys are sort of going to come on stage at the fan forum, at the fan stage on the Thursday at Albert Park, and pick up their gongs. So but John Goss, very much overdue, the only man to win both the Bathurst 1000 and the Australian Grand Prix. So very, very much overdue for Gossy to get a gong there. Joan Richmond, similar thing. Joan Richmond, a pioneer of women in motorsport in Australia, was very successful. Raced in the Australian Grand Prix back in the day. Also raced and won in class at the Le Mans 24-hour race. There was around raced in the Monte Carlo Rally. She's being posthumously honoured as well. Victor Bray, the drag racing champion. Victor is getting a gong as.
And I would have thought that's long overdue as well.
Yeah, I would have thought. Well, there has been sort of one of the criticisms of the Hall of Fame is that they've sort of had, every year it's like they've had lots and lots of circuit racing and rally people go in, but they've had sort of and one drag racer and one speedway person, and sort of one person from karts. And obviously there's a lot of people from those sports. I could go through, and I'm sure that there's lots of people. Mad Cow Mark would be would probably be able to quote him as well. I mean, he's a drag racing fan as well. You could go through a whole bunch of legends of Australian drag racing who probably deserve a spot in the Motorsport Hall of Fame, who haven't been honoured in any way, shape or form, and who are still around. And I would like to see it. I'd like to see that expanded a lot to get people in and so you don't have the thing where you sort of you're honouring people 2 or 3 years after they're gone.
Yeah.
But what we've got here, their box a multi-place bet for the Grand Prix. Piastri, Doohan, Barter, Mansell and Tommy Smith to get a place or better. 3 formula classes to be running there. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm looking for. I think. Like I said, like we said to Hugh, on the show, we're going to get we get the whole box and dice now. We get and it's going to be. I don't know. I think I mentioned it on the show with Andrew and David, but it might have been during a break or something. But having Formula 2 and Formula 3 is also great for the event itself internationally, because there are some people over here who think that the whole of the event goes around the world, and that the people in downtown Croatia and Yugoslav and all sorts of places are sitting there like, oh guys, the supercars are coming on, everyone gather around.
As soon as the supercars come there, when you're there, as soon as the supercars come on, the grandstands get cleared. It's the only.
Yeah, and it's the same. And it's the same here. We don't see the only support categories we see over here from around the world is Formula 2, Formula 3, and also they were running Porsche Super Cup as well. So you would imagine that now that, like people overseas, yes, they'll get obviously all the sessions for Formula 1 that is out and the Grand Prix, but they'll now also get that added exposure of the Formula 2 qualifying and the 2 races, and the same with Formula 3. So it's going to expand the audience and the number of eyeballs, looking at Albert Park. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed on the weather because it's much later in the year, and the long-term forecast is that we're going to have, quote, a very, very wet late March, early April. So so it could be it'll be interesting. I mean, I love a good. I love a good wet race, but sort of 100,000 people tramping around Albert Park after sort of 4 or 5 days of torrential rain.
It's not fun. I've been there.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
You have to get the wet weather tyres on, Pete. You have to get the get the Michelin boys in.
Just the box. You win some and you lose some. Gamble responsibly.
Yes, that's probably that, Pete. Yes, you're right. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's an interesting bet. I'm sure you could get it on somewhere. If not, if not with the regular people. I mean, there's so much betting going on. I mean, it's so annoying. You watch any sort of sport on the television, and every single ad is bloody, bet on this, bet on that, bet on something else. If your bet comes in the fourth, we give you your money back, and you can bet on something else. And got there. Yeah, pro stock drivers that were around before Victor. I don't know. We saw Larry Ormsby honoured in the Australia Day Honours earlier in the year. I don't think Larry's in the Hall of Fame. People like Hans van Dyke would be another one who could be there. And posthumously, the Rowe brothers from out Dandenong way, they were legend. Then you've got people sort of like Warren Armour, and I know Ash Marshall is in the Hall of Fame. Jim Reed is in the Hall of Fame. They're about the only. I'm sure there's someone else, perhaps, but the big. I don't think Larry Ormsby is in the Hall of Fame, but as we saw, he was finally sort of recognised outside with the Australia Day honour earlier in the year. But I think that's been a weakness of the Hall of Fame, and I'm not sure. It was very heavily sort of supported by Speed Cafe, and I'm not sure that they're sort of 100% behind it now, so that might be part of the problem. It was also very hard, because it was always on the Grand Prix weekend, it was very hard to get a lot of the drivers along, because it was quite a late night, and sort of anybody who was competing there was obviously not coming out, or they were coming in very briefly and sort of shooting out the door again, so they might have just said, look, we'll still have it. We'll still have a Hall of Fame, but we won't have the big ceremony and all the rest of it. They're doing a WWE, because the WWE are doing it with their Hall of Fame. It's the same thing. It used to be a standalone pay-per-view extravaganza, and this year it's just going to be a segment on Friday Night SmackDown. So, yeah. By the way, very, very, very inconsiderate of the Australian Grand Prix and of the FIA to have the Australian Grand Prix on the same weekend as WrestleMania. Very annoying. Very, very annoying indeed. I've got to make a decision. Now.
You need to get a video recorded, Brett.
Yeah, so Jim Reed, Mark's saying Jim Reed in the Drag Racing Hall of Fame, and Graham Cowan is about to be, I think, inducted into the Hall of Fame in there, and I'm not sure whether he's in. I'm sure, is he in the Hall of Fame here? Should be. Again, another one it should be. But yes, so coming up this week. Yeah, the Adelaide Motorsport Festival coming up this weekend. But Valtteri's coming out early to have a steer. He's going to run in an Alfa Romeo something, but he's also going to run in Supercar. And speaking of which, next it's probably not open to the public, and I don't know whether we're even allowed to go along if we want to, but Jack Doohan is going to be out at Calder on Wednesday having a steer of Tom Randall's Mustang. So so he's he's out there. I think it shows that we saw like today. I think Dave Reynolds doing the roulettes thing, flying around. All the stuff that used to be done by the Formula One drivers in terms of pre-race publicity is now being done by supercar drivers and Formula 2 and Formula 3 drivers, because the Formula One guys don't do any of that stuff anymore. It's like that was part of the deal. It's like we have a press conference on Thursday at the track. We will turn up. We will answer questions for 5 minutes, and then we're going back to the hotel room.
Opening up the minibar.
Yes, well, the motorsport festival, I really was looking at possibly going over there, but would have been a good story for the show. But it was very hard and very expensive to get any accommodations, or sort of affordable accommodation and flights over that would have me back in time to do the show. Because if I could have driven over, but then it's a long way to drive back on the Sunday night or the Monday morning,
From Adelaide,
and then do a show as well. Yeah, so if I could have got a flight in if I could have got a cheap flight in on the Friday morning and then got out sort of sometime late Sunday and then be back to start the edit on Monday, I would have done it. But the last one I went to there was a lot of fun. It was really good. It was a great event. So it's good to see that's happening. Yeah, Jim Reed was inducted in 2017 apparently. So there. Okay, well I don't know. Doc's not here, so we don't have MotoGP starts this weekend. I think everybody is saying how far the Ducatis. Doc would know more about that than I do. But I think it's from early season testing. Everybody is sort of saying that they're expecting the Ducatis to pretty much dominate at this stage. So we'll have a look and see what happens. That's happening over the weekend. They're at Portimao, I think. So that's coming up this weekend. Also, the Mugello 12 Hour. If you want to watch some, we've got a field of 39 cars, GT3s, GT4s, one or two TCR cars, a few, just a few sort of specials, few cup cars here and there. This is part of the Crevetic series. So it's the 12 hours, but it's basically in 2 6-hour blocks. So if you want something to watch on Saturday and Sunday night, then the Creventic 12 hour, the Mugello 12 hour is on over there. And apart from that, oh yes, if depending on what the weather's like, there's a few things that could get in the way. But for the first time in about 3 or 4 years, we may have drag boat racing happening on at the Melbourne Water Sports Centre down at Carrum coming up this Sunday. Now I know that it's been cancelled and uncancelled and cancelled, but I spoke to one of the organisers last night who said at this stage it's definitely. They've looked at the weather forecast and said at this stage definitely going ahead. Have a look at the Victorian Drag Boat Club's Facebook page. Unfortunately, they were hoping to have one of the big blow-and hydros there, which are incredibly spectacular. But because of the uncertainty, it was just not going to happen, because they said, look, we really can't afford to come down and then have the thing cancelled because of the wind or the rain or the blue-green algae or whatever the other problems they've got at the place. So that's not going to happen. But there will be some drag boat racing happening, and it's very spectacular. The really fast boats, and if they ever get back a Top Fuel drag boat again, I've only seen one run once. It was something you won't forget in a hurry. That's for sure. Sort of 8,000 plus horsepower on water is a spectacle.
Mm.
Ellis is saying two Judd Brabhams BT58s at Adelaide. We've got there's quite an interesting array of cars there. Both Sam Brabham and David Brabham are going to drive Jack's World Championship winning car from the 1960s. There's also there's quite a few of the Formula One cars that we saw at Phillip Island are going across. They're going to do laps as well. There's a Formula E car. This is Sam Shaheen, sort of, he brings all sorts of things out to put in his collection, and one of them is he's brought one of last year's Formula E cars
Okay.
out there to give that a bit of a run around to see. And I think Sam is probably looking. I know that he's very, very keen to get the Asian Le Mans series back at the Bend. But the interesting thing was, if you watched the telecast of the World Endurance Championship, the Sebring 1000, John Hindhoff, our friend from Radio Le Mans, was pointing out that he had been told that the running of the Asian Le Mans series at the Bend was very much preparatory to the possibility of having a round of the World Endurance Championship out there. Now I'm not sure how that's going to work, because I didn't think it would be it would come up to the specs, because I think that at the moment they were only racing on level one. But then again, Sebring is, I don't think Sebring is a level one track. Might be wrong, but I don't think it is. So, but that's apparently like what they were talking about, is that Sam was very, very keen to get a round of the World Endurance Championship out, and if that happens, I'm there. That's for sure. Yeah, that's a bit of a problem for the drag boat guys. The Southern 80, one of the major ski boat races, probably the major ski boat race in Australia, sort of the Bathurst 1000 of ski boat racing, along with the Bridge to Bridge in New South Wales. That's running this weekend up in Echuca. So a lot of the really fast blown displacement boats that would have been at the drags are going to obviously be up at Echuca as well. So and unfortunately they couldn't get out of that. The dates were changed randomly, and this is just the way it worked out, that there was they both ended up with the same date, and they couldn't swap. So yeah, a bit disappointing, but it would be great to see. I mean, powerboat racing is really spectacular in one form or another, and it would be great to see. Great to see it kick off again. As I said, the drag boat's very spectacular and really, really close to town. I can't believe they get away with actually running them there, because you imagine having a regular sort of car drag strip out in the middle of Carrum. It wouldn't last very long, but yet sort of 3 or 4 times a year they run this in there, just down sort of just south of the Nepean Highway sort of thing. So yeah, that's coming up this weekend. I think it's pretty cheap to get in. It's always a fun day too. There are a nice bunch of guys, very casual, and it's just sort of have a few drinks, have a laugh, and watch some cool boats run some stuff over the liquid quarter, as they call it. It's an eighth of a mile. Speed week at Lake Gardner has been washed out. That often happens. Another thing I'd really like to do, Melissa and I spoke for years about making the road trip, and Stuart, who has obviously been a regular on the show, is there. I know that he's spoken about it many, many times. It was one of the things that it was sort of on the bucket list, was to do the big road trip and go to Lake Gardner and do a special documentary on it, but. It takes a long time to get up there. Chris, you'd have been sort of up around that area, wouldn't you? I mean, it's in Lake Garden, sort of middle of South Australia.
No, I've never been too far into South Australia. I've gone to Adelaide a couple of times.
I thought you were up
I've
around.
gone into central New South Wales.
Oh, I thought you were up around the Woomera area.
Woomera is way out of Adelaide.
No, that's what I mean. Well, so's Lake Garden. Lake Garden is probably much closer to Woomera than
Oh,
Adelaide
okay.
is.
Well, no, I've never been there. I've gone over there and blown things up, but
And so are the people at Lake Gardner. Mostly small block Fords, I think.
oh yes, I can't remember what size truck this was, but
But yes, it's a great thing, because I remember sort of getting, when I was a kid, getting the I always got the American Hot Rod magazine, and they had the Bonneville Speed Week, and you look at some of the weird and wonderful, bizarre things there, and you went, wow, that'd be amazing. And this is our equivalent, but they've had, like the Bonneville Speed Week, it doesn't take much in the way of water to put a stop to it on the dry lake bed over there, because it becomes not a dry lake bed anymore. It just becomes a lake bed, which is a bit of a problem. Okay, I think that's all we've got time for this week. As I said, probably next week we might be taking a break from Full Course Yellow. Also, a bit of feedback from from you, our regular sort of get-togethers on a Thursday night. It has been a bit of a problem getting people in. Obviously, for sometimes with Pete and all the time with Doc and a few others to come in this late on a Thursday night. And I don't want to do it before the shows. We're looking at doing it on another night. Obviously can't do it on a Tuesday, can't do it on a Monday, so it basically means it's either a Wednesday night or a Friday night. If you you got any suggestions, if something would be better for you, if you'd like to do it on a Friday. I mean, Friday's bad for me, but then it's not up to me, I suppose. It's up to everybody else. But we'll see how we go. But I think next week we'll call it quits for next week, and we'll come back on Full Course Yellow in 2 weeks' time. But yes, there will be an edition of In Pit Lane next week, both on YouTube and Channel 31 on the Thursday night, when our guest will be Connor Summers, and also coming up, we've got a band coming up. We've got a really good band coming up this week as well. So hopefully we get all that audio stuff sorted out for the live feed on Tuesday night. Okay, guys, everybody. I think that's. I hadn't thought of that. I think you're right, Paul. I hadn't thought of that. That would be well, and I'd probably be one of them. I mean, if you're doing anything at Winton or Phillip Island, chances are, I'd be down as well. So Wednesday night. It might be the only one we've got. We'll see. But that makes sense. So I think Friday's out as well, guys. So much motor racing and so little time. Okay, we'll see you. We'll see you very soon. Have a good weekend, and we'll catch up at the Grand Prix. We might put something there. We might have we'll try and have a Full Course Yellow meet up on Friday at the Grand Prix if you're out there. Pete will be there, I'll be there, Doc will be there. Chris, are you going out?
No.
No. Okay, Chris is not going out. Doc's probably too busy working, so it'll just be me. It'll just be me and Pete, and possibly with a drink in our hands. Okay, so possibly, only possibly. It's an outside chance. I tried alcohol the other day, and it's actually not too bad. I might have more of it in future.
And I have a disability where I'm supposed to drink a lot. Not necessarily.
Really?
It's not necessarily. Not necessarily alcohol, but like the doctor said, you got to keep the fluids up.
Oh, right.
Beer is a fluid.
Yes, it is. So Scotch.
Yes, that's the beer is as expensive as Scotch at the Grand Prix.
It is, yes.
Okay, everyone, thanks for joining us on Full Course Yellow. We'll see you next week on In Pit Lane on Channel 31 Thursday night, and also if you're watching us live with the recording on Tuesday at 9 o'clock. But until we see you again, thanks a lot for joining us. We'll catch you next week. See some of you at the Grand Prix. See you later, everyone. Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.